Hi there. Welcome to the RevOps Show, where today we talk about the most misunderstood, misaligned, misapplied component of go-to-market and RevOps: throughput. How often do you even hear the term throughput? On top of it, there's an increase of people talking about this thing called systems thinking. So if you're going to talk about systems thinking, you should probably know what it is. To sum it all up, today is about constraints, bottlenecks, systems thinking, and throughput.
Jess.
Doug.
I think this is the first time we've ever recorded at 2:45 p.m. on Thursday.
It probably is.
And it's definitely the first time we've ever recorded on the day of an AMA.
Oh, it for sure is.
You know what that means?
You're fired up?
I am fired up.
Yeah, I know. You know, I had the thought while we were on AMA that, like, I might regret the fact that I scheduled this for this day and time.
Hey, you know my philosophy. If you ain't getting a cease and desist letter, you ain't trying.
Oh, my God. Great. Something to look forward to.
I think I played a longer version of it, of a Carrie Underwood song on a different podcast.
Oh, I was going to say on RevOps Show? I don't remember you ever playing Carrie Underwood on.
No,
okay.
It was when I was doing the spot with George and Max had just had his girl, and it was what did she have, a song, American Girl or something?
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
It was very sweet on my part, if I say so myself. And so much has happened since the last recording.
What do you mean?
Well, Kentucky has a new basketball coach.
They do. Now,
are you excited about this coach?
So I told you I don't know much about this coach, so I don't know.
Which is very disappointing. How are you not scouting all current Kentucky alumni that are coaching?
I don't know. Well, it's really bad because, like, I saw him play at Rep Arena. Like,
is this because you've been spending too much time scouting out AAU games?
Clearly.
So is he a Mormon?
I have not done enough research yet. I do not know if he's a Mormon. Well, probably. I mean, if you're coaching at BYU, you got to be. I mean,
I don't know that that's true. Is Doug Flutie a Mormon?
Pretty sure.
Oh, he went to Boston College. Sorry, wrong person.
Oh.
No, I can tell you definitely you don't have to be, because you know who went to BYU?
Who?
Jim McMahon.
Oh, that's right.
As a matter of fact, I forget the book, but it talked about how the Bears were totally freaked out. I mean, this is way back, no internet, etc. So they, drafted Jim McMahon first. They're figuring out, here's going to be a nice Mormon boy coming from BYU, etc. Comes out of the limo wearing his dark sunglasses, cut off sweats that have been cut off with scissors, with chewing tobacco with a jug spit cup.
Oh, the 80s. What a time to be alive.
Such a great time. Such a great time. So let's see what else happened. So UConn won. So your Final Four pick was wrong.
Yeah, it was. Yep. It was.
South Carolina won.
South Carolina did win.
Women's Final Four, higher ratings than men's Final Four.
I think that's a testament to the teams that made it in the Final Four. We'll just leave that at that.
Did you see so Caitlin Clark drafted first since our last podcast?
Mm-hmm.
Did you see how much money she's making in the WNBA this year?
I did not. It's probably going to be disappointing. Jesus Christ. Knew it.
So she signs the 4-year rookie max contract. Total value, I think, is $360,000.
It's ridiculous.
There were all kinds of people that were saying she was going to have to take a pay cut to go pro, but she's of course keeping her NIL endorsements, and I'm sure they will increase. But
yeah.
Let's see what else has happened, Jess.
Caps are in the playoffs. Caps are in the playoffs.
Caps are in the playoffs. CAPS. Caps, baby.
We close business.
We always close business. We close business every day.
every day doing?
Don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone. So I was at a wedding. I went to a wedding.
You did. You did.
I got to give credit to the. They had co-best men and co-made matrons of honor. It's like, okay, how can you say indecisive without using the words indecisive?
Wow. Oh.
But one of the best men who I've known since he was a kid. I've known the groom since he was a kid. Got up and said, for those of you that don't know me, my name is blah, blah, blah. I am a pediatric neurosurgeon here in Virginia Beach. And when I'm not working, I volunteer time at the animal shelter. For those of you that do know me, if you could please keep it quiet and not tell anybody what I do.
That's amazing. I wish that I had that spiel for when I was best woman.
And he delivered it. He delivered it just right. Yeah. Just enough humor that he knew he was being funny, but not so much that I
like that.
It was very, very well done. Very well done. And let's see what else has happened, Jess.
I don't know.
I mean, we'll stay away from world events because that'll just make everybody sad.
This is sad. Yeah. Yep.
It'll just make everybody sad.
All right.
Oh, did you see I saw the news this morning, actually. That's what I meant to ask you about. The Disney employees who wear costumes are unionizing.
Oh, are they? I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that news. Good for them.
And then Disney's about to spend more money than ever on expanding the park. What are your thoughts on that?
There's a lot of rumors. I'm excited.
It's more than rumors, though. I mean, they've really contracted, is what I.
Yeah, well, so they've contracted. There's a lot of rumors about what they're gonna do with, what the theming is gonna be, what the lands are gonna be. That's not fully confirmed.
Is there going to be a Muppet Land?
It's time to get things started on the most sensational, inspirational, celebrational.
There is a Muppet section. It's just very, very fun.
I didn't say a Muppet section. I said a Muppet Land.
There is a Muppet Land. There is technically in Hollywood Studios. Yes, there is.
It's not. There's a Muppet area, but it's not Muppet Land. There's like
it was supposed to be. And what I would love is if
what's the Muppet ride? There's not a Muppet ride.
Yes, there is. Well, there's a Muppet attraction. There's not a ride. There's an attraction. But I agree with you. The Muppets should have their own ride. They should
Aren't they all attractions, not rides?
They're all attractions, but they're not all rides.
No, but
rides
they
are
don't call anything a ride? Do they, or do they call them rides?
They call them rides.
Okay.
Rides can be an attraction, but not all attractions can be a ride.
Right.
So yes, there's a movie.
There's a movie that they haven't updated since.
That movie's great. And how dare you? I would be.
The movie was great.
So happy if they would expand that Muppets Land and actually do it right. But you know,
Disney's kind of forgotten the Muppets.
I know. It's very sad. It's very sad.
We want cookie.
I know it's not a Muppet, but it is a Muppet.
There's a Muppet. It's not a Muppet, but it is a Muppet.
It's not easy being green, Jess.
A wise frog once said.
Mm-hmm. That's why Kermit and I are kindred spirits.
Because it's not easy being green.
It's not easy being Doug. It's not easy being green.
Okay, well there we go.
It's not easy being an evolutionary algorithm.
I hear you.
It puts a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure on.
Clearly. What are we talking about today, Doug?
I have no idea, Jess.
Great.
We are talking about constraints, bottlenecks, fat kids on hikes.
He said it. Wow, he said it. Okay, great. We are going to talk about fat kids on hikes.
Jess, I wasn't sure I was going to say it until just a few seconds ago. We're talking about throughput today, Jess. Throughput.
Okay.
We're talking about what I think is, in many ways, the most misunderstood, misaligned, misapplied component of go-to-market and RevOps.
Most misapplied concept in RevOps. That's a pretty bold statement.
Let me ask you this question. How often do you even hear the term throughput in these RevOps mistives.
Very rarely.
Did I use the word mistive correctly?
You did. I think
Okay,
you did. We're going to just go with it. Very rarely, if at all. I'm familiar with it because of a book that you had me read, and you talk about it, but I don't hear it brought up, talked about very frequently at all.
And I think that I am seeing more people talk about systems thinking. I'm seeing the terminology used more, and I'm just saying that if you're going to talk about systems thinking, you should probably know what it is. So we're going to talk about systems thinking. We're going to talk about constraints, bottlenecks. It's all about throughput. We're gonna simplify the complexity. We're going to complicate the simplicity.
So it's going to be a regular podcast.
We're going to yin. We're going to yang.
Wow, you're real philosophical today, Doug.
You will probably never schedule a RevOps show recording after an AMA again.
This is looking to be the last time. All right, where do you want to start, Doug?
And on news, last point on news. You know what happens tomorrow or tonight?
Oh, Taylor Swift
New
drops.
era.
It's
I
a
mean,
new
how
era.
excited are you about that?
I'm so excited to.
I don't even know if I'm going to be able to sleep.
Album on repeat because I live in a house full of Swifties. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
So, will your girls? How do they get to school?
We drive them.
Will they let you take them to school without the dead
Probably
poets?
Not.
Yeah.
Probably not.
See, I'm gonna have a problem because I keep wanting to say Dead Poet Society, but
you and I are in the same boat because that's where I go to. So.
Oh, Captain, my Captain. Where can I go stand up on? I need to stand up on my desk.
Goodness.
Oh, Captain, my Captain.
Okay. Wow. Okay, let's bring it back to Throughput. This is not a Taylor Swift podcast. So where do you want to start?
Let it go. Turn away and slam the door.
I will get, we don't talk about Bruno at it here. So I feel like I'm missing that.
Great. Something for me to look forward to.
So Jess, you've talked about this. But let's start off with some bad metaphors.
Oh, great. What bad metaphors are we starting with?
Well, apparently, Jess, all the prep we did for this show has completely gone out the
Well,
door.
I thought, okay. So, okay. All right. Got
One time I try to prep, I just get blown out the window.
So there are two metaphors that are frequently used that I have never liked.
Yep.
The first
Do
one
you want to tell our audience,
I'm going to.
Our edge of the seat audience, what those metaphors are?
The first one is the funnel, and the second one is the flywheel.
Funnels and flywheels, baby.
Don't like either one.
So why don't you like them?
Because I mean they're similar to a lot of metaphors. They're great in theory. It's not how things actually work. Your funnel is not a pretty little, two pretty little lines that go together and push things down. And I feel similarly about the flywheel. I don't think that's how things work.
What are your thoughts on onomatopoeias?
I don't know, Doug.
Splat. Yeah. So the problem with both of the metaphors is that they're applied beyond the metaphor.
Oh, yeah.
So the funnel metaphor is your audience size, the breadth of your market narrows as things come down and as there's progression.
Yep.
Though what's interesting is one of the elements about the funnel is the funnel was built, the funnel metaphor was created in an industrial era.
Right.
And I know what people are thinking right now. What the hell does this have to do with the metaphor? Well, the biggest constraint in the industrial age was capital.
Right.
Right. And what digital has done is really changed the relationship of capital. And so the truth is the funnel isn't even real anymore. Because if you take a look at how you bring in markets, and if you think about the role of community, what the role of community does is it really makes the widest point of your funnel, if you're doing it right, should be upper middle. So it should kind of right, because there's a whole broad audience of potential that's operating above the funnel. The difficulty with the funnel analogy is, have you ever poured something in a funnel?
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
Can you speed it up?
No.
No, you cannot speed it up. Can you skip steps? No, you cannot skip steps.
Absolutely not.
Can you come in at the bottom? No, you can't come in at the bottom. Right? So that's my favorite is the funnels have always been the funnels that have like the top part, then a gap, then the middle part, then a gap, then the bottom part. I'm like, okay, that wouldn't be a really effective funnel, right? Here, let me pour the oil into my car with it.
Right.
And then the flywheel is a business dynamic. It is not a go-to-market dynamic. And it's not even a business dynamic. It's a meta business dynamic. It's a growth structure metaphor that you can, the flywheel is the translation of energy and momentum. The problem is that when you're looking at your system, when you're looking at what's actually happening in your business is a system.
Mm-hmm.
And more so, your business is a complex system.
Right.
And more so, your business is a complex system of complex systems.
Your business is a complex system of complex systems. Wow, that's okay. Yeah.
Right. So it's not just a system of systems, which it is.
Yep.
It's a system of complex systems of complex systems.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And so, like, one of the things, and we've talked about it jokingly before, but the difficulty in a funnel and a flywheel is funnels and flywheels have causes and effects.
Mm-hmm.
Not only do they have causes and effects, they operate in a linear cause effect pattern.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
And even the way we talk about, even the HubSpot funnel, the HubSpot flywheel.
Yep.
Attract, engage, delight.
Yep.
I attract, engage, delight, and delight drives this. And yet, if you take a look at the underlying metrics of what's happening, it's not happening.
Right.
Right. Because what's happening is that they're when net revenue retention goes up and new customer acquisition is going down or is not going up at the same rate, what you actually have is a slowing down in the earlier part of your quote unquote flywheel that's speeding up. But what? What?
Right.
Okay. They're all operating at different speeds, at different elements. They're all impacted. And what's more is there is no space-time continuum in a complex system.
Right.
I've been binge watching The Orville.
Clearly.
I have been. Seth,
I believe you.
Seth MacFarlane is right down my stream of humor.
Yep.
There is no, so the cause is the effect. I'm sorry, the effect is the cause.
Right. Yeah, and the other piece I don't particularly like about these two is when you start to try, and we're going to get into this a little bit, so I don't want to jump too far ahead, but when you start to try to build, I don't want to use the word efficiency, but when you start to try to improve the system and you start to try to identify those bottlenecks, these kind of fall apart because it doesn't, to your point, it isn't always this that leads to this that leads to that. That's what I mean by they don't work in actuality. So it is misleading if you're trying to figure out, okay, where are we getting slowed down? Where is that bottleneck? It doesn't match up with a funnel or a flywheel when you really start to break apart where that's happening.
In a flywheel, you don't slow down to speed up.
Right. Yeah.
The fundamental structural problem with the metaphors is both metaphors lead to an obsession about efficiency.
Yep.
Right. If I've got a funnel, I want to make the funnel efficient. I want to make the flywheel is all about efficiency.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
The flywheel is all about eliminate friction.
Yep.
The thing that I'm not getting right now, if you look at the go-to-market gurus, and yes, I mean what I'm saying here because like the difference between an expert or an SME and a guru is how much do they claim their expertise for themselves?
Right.
How much are they telling you that what they're telling you is brand new thinking? I've always found that if you're telling me brand new thoughts, you don't really have to tell me that they're brand new. It's and also, by the way, there's actually very, 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 very little brand new that's also valuable. But anyways, the catchphrase is the age of growth at all costs is over. It's all about efficient growth.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, no, efficient growth isn't what it's about. Maybe it's productive growth. Maybe that's what they mean.
Mm-hmm. Maybe
it's profitable growth. The other thing that's interesting is when we were in the growth at all costs mode, and we were even acknowledging growth at all costs, everything was still talking about efficiency.
Yeah, there's always been an obsession with efficiency.
And again, I think the metaphors set that. And so what I think the metaphor is, what we need, the right metaphor is the system of systems.
Okay.
Right? And so we need to bring about and think about what is the system here? What is the goal? What is the objective? Jez, ask me what my favorite episode of a podcast that I've ever hosted is.
What's your favorite episode of a podcast that you've
It's funny that you asked, Jez, because it goes right along with what we're talking about today. Remember when I had the opportunity to interview with Mike Donnelly, I interviewed Steve Yao, who had been at Barracuda?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Barracuda had made themselves famous. They were a very successful public company, but they bought airport billboards. They were all over the place. And I got an opportunity to learn the real reason why they did that. And it was all about how someone had figured out how the Google AdWords algorithm worked and everything, and realized, hey, if we spent, like, the cost of billboards were low, we could create more name recognition, which would mean more clicks, which would mean a lower cost per click, which would mean we could spend less, get more than our competitor, on and on and on. It was a perfect example of systems thinking. It was looking at a whole bunch of things that on the surface were unrelated, right? And they were looking towards the end point.
Right.
When I was a financial advisor, one of the things that I picked up really quickly was, on the surface, minimize your taxes makes all the sense in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Except efficiency is great when you're in a simple system, when everything flows in the same way.
Right.
But when you look at taxes and you take into account marginal tax rates and other events and the difference and different tax rates for different elements, what I realized was when we talk about efficiency with taxes, the goal is pay as little in taxes as possible.
Right.
But that's not anyone's goal.
No.
The goal should be have as much money after you pay taxes as possible.
Right.
And so what I realized, and I started putting together models that began to show, hey, if we actually exercise options earlier here, do this with them, and like we will come out with more at the end of 5 years. Yes, we'll pay more taxes.
Right.
But who cares?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
We were working with a client recently. We actually have another one that we're talking to about this. They were obsessed about increasing average deal size.
Yeah.
And they were having success increasing their average deal size, but they weren't getting quite the payoff. Well, one of the things that we saw was that there was actually more juice for the squeeze if they rethought it through increasing average lifetime.
Yep.
And by the way, it didn't have a major impact on the total lifetime value, but what it had was a big impact on lowering the cost of that revenue, which generated more gross profit. It generated more throughput, right? So we get so tied into the details.
Mm-hmm.
We get so tied into this, and let's make this efficient, that we forget that's not the point. The point is, I talked about this in a webinar we did a few weeks ago, putting it at its simplest, like the key metric is revenue per day.
Right.
Right. Not sales cycle time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so when you're talking, if you're going to talk about it, well, you can't even talk about efficiency. I was going to try to make efficiency work with constraints and bottlenecks, but you can't.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think there's another danger with with this focus on efficiency that we're seeing is like, you have a tendency, and I think this applies to when we're working on sales process. I think this applies to when we're working on CRM implementations. It applies to a lot of places in RevOps. We get this focus on efficiency, and then we tend to lose the plot of what it is we were trying to do, because there's so much a focus on let's make this more efficient.
I think there's truth there, but I don't think it's always true, because I think a lot of times what ends up happening is you don't lose the plot. You never had it.
Oh, well, yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
And so efficiency becomes, well, you know why there's so much focus on efficiency, I think?
Why?
It's easy to measure,
Mm-hmm.
and it's got a relatively short lag. And by the way, if I go into a place where, especially where there is inefficiency, I can create efficiency and it will look good.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
But who was it? Al Dunlop. Chainsaw Al.
Chainsaw Al.
He was considered at one point the greatest turnaround CEO in history. He was the guy that you went to all the time when your company was in trouble, because he had an amazing track record at multiple companies. He'd come in when they were in trouble, turn their numbers around in 2 years, get hired away. And within a year or two after he left the previous company, what they found was that company could no longer sustain the results the Chainsaw Al had created, which played into Chainsaw Al's reputation. He was so good, that you couldn't afford to lose him.
Right.
Right. Well, basically all he did was he just laid off half the workforce, cut costs.
Gotcha.
Right.
Yep.
Ended up, I think it was at Sunbeam was his last company. And guess what? He would, I call it the greater fool's theory. You call them garage sales. You know, the garage sales are all based on the greater fool theory.
Right.
Right. Your trash is somebody else's treasure.
Yeah.
Right. Until somebody ends up with all the trash and no one buys it. And that was Sunbeam. Because suddenly Al had to stay.
Yeah.
And then they realized, wait, Al was the problem. Yeah, he made it look good.
Right.
Right. The lag's a bitch. Howard Schultz retires from Starbucks. Becomes chairman.
Yep.
Operators come in, take over.
Yep.
They start seeing all kinds of inefficiency. They were roasting locally. There was waste. There was this. They did all kinds of things. And for 18, 24 months, oh my God, it was amazing.
Right.
Costs went down. Sales went up. But the places stopped smelling like coffee. And the famous Howard Schultz we're getting commoditized letter. He comes back.
Yeah.
Right. I was listening to a book that talks about this simple complexity. Told the story. Company sees their receivables and time grow. They're seeing the receivables grow and extend. This is a problem. We've got to get focused on cash flow. Cash flow is king. Finance comes in. They get more focused. They implement new rules. They hire accounts receivable clerks. They implement stronger thresholds. They follow up. Cash flow improves.
Yep.
The company becomes more and more difficult to work with. The company becomes more entrenched. They give less credit.
Yep.
The customers begin to renew less, buy less frequently, start working with other vendors. 2 years later, sales begins to slow down. Sales begin to decrease.
Yep.
Somebody yells at the sales team. Somebody yells at VP of sales, gets fired. New VP of sales comes in. They buy a new CRM. They implement it right. And it's like, well, okay, hold on a second. No one ever stops and says, wait.
Yeah.
Now, am I saying that you should just let your receivables grow and extend? No, I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
But I'm saying the cause and the effect. And by the way, did this all happen just because of? No, probably not. But, we talked in our last episode. I'm pretty sure it was the last episode. Who knows? So much has happened since our last episode. Respect the lag.
Yeah.
Right. And so the thing is, like, you have to understand when you're in an infinite game, when you're in a complex ecosystem, when you're in a complex system, the decisions you made, they can't be judged for years.
Right.
And so you're having to make new decisions before the decisions that you've made before can be judged. And so much about what happens from the decisions that you made are driven by the environment far more than anything that you've done.
Yep.
That's why I used to keep a sign above my desk that said, never confuse brains with a bull market.
Yeah.
Right. I would rather, I was talking with some financial analysts about this yesterday, or 2 days ago. I'd rather be a bad manager in a zero interest rate, zero inflationary environment than a great manager in a period that we're in right now. One of the things that companies are only beginning to understand is when we were in this zero interest rate environment and zero inflation environment, which really was 2% inflation environment. But when you're in a zero interest rate environment, you're basically to not spend money is economically foolish. If you're a business and you're not spending money, it's foolish.
Yeah.
By the way, here's the proof of it. Companies with hundreds of millions or $1 billion of cash were borrowing money.
Right.
No, it used to be that if you borrowed money, it meant you did not have cash.
Right.
Wait, why are they issuing a bond when they have $300 million in cash? Because that's what that was the game.
Right.
These things have changed, right? So all those great ideas that you had, I mean, Zoom was a genius company until, from March 2000 to September of 2022. I mean, they got really smart really fast and they got really stupid really fast. Right. This whole return to work thing, the thing about the system is when you change a piece of the system changes.
Yep.
So when you make changes and you fail to account for the whole system, the systemic change, the full loop, if you will.
Yeah.
That's where problems emerge. And that's where people get very, very, very uncomfortable because they don't know what to do. And I think the companies that coming out of COVID and started talking about remote, the ones that viewed that as a change in our system. And so therefore re-updated their system for this versus those that viewed it as a change in geography.
Yeah.
The companies that viewed it as a change in geography are the ones that are, that are the return to work advocates.
Yeah. I'm actually watching this play out with I won't name the company, with my husband's company right now. And it's like fascinating to see. And they've had a lot of turnover because of it. Because of the frustration that you're talking about. Like,
oh, I thought you were talking about our return to the office policy.
Our return to the office policy sure. It's not happening.
well, don't we need an office before anyone can return?
Exactly. I was going to say we haven't had an office
if we had an
before
office,
COVID.
And if we had an office, would it be a return to office?
It would be a new office. It would be a new
go to the office policy.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. This whole, obsession and focus on sales cycles and customer acquisition costs.
Yep.
Has led to, like, the move to efficiency is what led to the problem of growth at all costs. So if we just try to become more efficient, I don't see how that's going to solve the problem. Right? Because the focus needs to be on throughput, revenue generated. Right. And so here's my question. My question is, what are you doing this year as an organization, as a department, as an individual that's making 2026 easier for you?
Oh, that's interesting. That's a real long way away. I agree with the statement. I was just...
Well, that was the theory of inbound marketing, Jess.
Right. No, I know.
The theory of inbound marketing was we can maintain that connection. Right. The theory of inbound marketing was outbound marketing gets pain, not fit. Inbound marketing gets fit, not pain.
Yeah.
Well, another way of saying that is fit is fit, pain is intent.
Yeah.
Right. But as we've tried to optimize, and here's the question that you need to ask as a RevOps professional. The statement should not be efficiency. It should be optimization.
Oh, interesting. Yep.
And the question you need to ask yourself is, are you optimizing for the whole or the parts?
I think that's really important. Yes, optimizing to the whole, not the parts, but also I think optimization and efficiency get conflated frequently. Like we talk about optimizing, but what we mean is driving efficiency, and it's not the same thing.
Well, it's not the same thing, but here's what I'll say. For purposes of 90% of the people that might be listening to us, it's close enough.
Okay.
If you don't understand the difference between the two, I'm okay with that. Are you looking to make the system more efficient or the parts more efficient? Because here's the thing to understand about systems optimization. If you want to optimize the system, the only way you get there is suboptimal.
Yep.
You know why?
Why, Doug?
Because there's a fat kid on the hike.
Oh, okay, there we go. We got to the fat kid.
Not just a fat kid, but a fat, slow kid.
Okay. Do you want to tell us about the fat, slow kid?
I do, Jess. As you can tell. So this comes from the parable book, The Goal, which is really all about constraint.
Yep.
I mean, for all that we make fun of it and for all that we talk about it being one of the most difficult books we've ever read, in fairness, it was a difficult book for us to read because it was not written for us at all. It's all about manufacturing.
Yes.
So while it might be one of the most difficult books we've ever read, I think it is safe to say for both of us, it is the best and easiest manufacturing book we've ever read.
Probably. I'll also say it's up there with one of the most important books I've ever read.
Oh yeah, unquestionable.
Yeah.
And so one of the metaphors they talk about, one of the metaphors they gave was these kids on a hike, and there was Johnny, that wasn't the name, but there was Johnny, and Johnny was a fat, slow kid, and so to keep everything together, right? Do you put Johnny at the front, which slows everybody down and everyone gets upset? Do you put him at the back? Then all of a sudden everyone's waiting for him, and so Johnny was the bottleneck.
Yep.
Right. And so where you move Johnny, where you move the bottleneck, moves everything. And so you can't. So like for Jimmy, what Jimmy would do to do the hike the best, the fastest, what was right for Jimmy was not right for Johnny, and what was right for Johnny was not right for Jimmy. And so if we were looking for the whole group, what we needed to do was something that was not right for Jimmy and was not right for Johnny.
Yep.
Right. And so that's what you need to understand. So if you want to optimize your revenue path, then you can only get there by sub-optimizing the components of your revenue path.
Yep. So as we talk about systems thinking, what are some of the things that we need to understand for systems to drive this optimization?
So here's the first thing
about
that
this
you
the
need
right
to
way.
understand. What causes sales? What causes revenue for your company? Right? I refer to it as doing a what causes sales analysis. Right?
Yep.
And I really think you need to identify ultimately 3 points of cause. Right? Because this is going to sound very meta and very suboptimal. And by the way, it needs to be suboptimal because we're trying to optimize. Why are you being so suboptimal? Well, I'm trying to optimize. It's the cause of the cause. So the danger is when we talk about what causes sales is there is a cause that triggers intent.
Yep.
But what I'm talking about is, so like what causes me to buy is not what causes me to write the check to the vendor that I write to.
Yep.
So again, it's why, if you think about the 3 whys in the sale path, is why change now, why change with you. And so those are kind of the causal path. So what is the cause that leads someone to say we need to change? What leads them to say we need to change now?
Right.
What says we need to change with you? The change with you happens post intent.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. And so understanding that is crucially important, because without that, then you can't understand the core of systems, which is what's the constraint, what's the bottleneck.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. And this is an example that was given. So I run a construction company. We have 4 design groups, 3 roofing teams, and 1 framing team.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Bottlenecks my framing team. I got 1 framing team.
Yeah.
Right. So it doesn't matter how much, like if I get more and more efficient with my roofing team, it's not going to do me any good. If I get more efficient with my design team, it's not going to do me any good. I got 1 framing team.
Yeah.
Well, when I add 3 more framing teams, then that's going to change the dynamics. It's not as simple. So you're always going to have constraints. You're always going to have bottlenecks. Understanding where they are and how you're managing that is really important. And by the way, you may not really know what that change is. This is the law of unexpected consequences for a period of time.
Yep.
And by the way, if I go out and I just hire, 3 more framing groups, does that mean suddenly everything is working? No, it doesn't mean that, right? There's lags. There's all these things that we talked about. So understanding your constraints and bottlenecks. And then what that allows you to do is to view your system as a whole. The thing that kills us, and when we talk about silos, what we're really talking about is bounded rationality.
What do you mean by bounded rationality?
What it's called. It's called bounded rationality, right? So every system has its parts.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why we're not a system. We're a system of systems. We're a complex system of complex systems.
Yeah.
So we say sales and marketing. Sales and marketing infers there's a sales system and a marketing system.
Yeah.
And that is true.
Mm-hmm.
It's also not true. Right? So if I say you're VP of sales, you're going to, as a matter of fact, we were just talking about somebody who is on our client side. They report to the VP of sales. As a matter of fact, they don't just report to the VP of sales. They report to the VP of sales of 1 division.
Yes.
But they have a responsibility theoretically to support the full implementation.
Correct.
Well, gee, where do you think their priorities are? Right?
Right.
Now, is that their fault? No, it's not their fault. It's what we do.
Yeah.
If I say you're the director of accounts receivables, what are you going to do? You're going to optimize accounts receivables.
Yep. Yep.
Right? Because that's the bound that we gave you. That's the constraint. So you need constraints.
Yes.
But the natural element of constraints is this thing called bounded rationality.
Mm-hmm.
So everything you're doing makes sense, but it's not taking into account the whole. Systems thinking is based on an idea called holism. A holistic approach, considering the system as a whole rather than focusing on parts in isolation. So what is revenue operations about? Revenue operations is the committee of the whole.
Yep.
Right? There should be tension between the parts and the whole. That is required. You know what is not efficient? Differentiation is not efficient.
I agree with what you're saying, but tell me more.
No, it's not efficient. What do systems do? Systems eliminate distinction.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Because central same is highly efficient.
Right.
But it's not resilient.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why do pure breeds, right? They lose resilience. They win awards.
Yep.
And get sick and broke. I don't mean broke as in no money. I mean broke as in broken.
Well, both,
right?
But yes.
Right? No, their owners get broke.
Yeah, their owners get broke.
Right? And so it's understanding this need. I mean, the danger of the statement that to optimize the system, you have to sub-optimize the parts is, well, sub-optimizing never makes sense.
Right.
Like, it's never rational. It's always like, huh? Why?
Sure.
And just because it's suboptimal doesn't mean it's right.
Right.
It's like, if it's optimal, it's wrong.
Right.
But if it's suboptimal, it could be wrong.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you see the world as a system of systems, you have to understand you're never dealing with the truth. And that's why I say, I think I was born for RevOps because I was born a little salty.
Okay.
Right? There's a little saltiness in RevOps because I never believe what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
Right? I have to have a piece of me that never believes what I'm seeing. Because the moment I see it, it's past.
Mm-hmm.
And like the hardest element of performance is letting it go, but not too much.
Yeah.
Right. And so you need to understand the map is not the terrain.
Right.
The model is not reality. And by the way, you know, when we did our offsite and we did our drill, one of the great aspects of the drill is everyone saw a little bit about what it was like to be on the other side.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Matter of fact, one of the things I think we're going to add, this is we're going to add some drills where they're on the customer side.
Right. Yeah.
Like make sure you're on the customer side. You know, what was who I forget who I was listening to, but you know, if you run a restaurant, you should eat there at least once a quarter.
Yeah.
The model is not reality. And when you build your models, understand that. Look for conflicting elements. I want KPIs that conflict with each other. I don't want KPIs that all align.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because by the way, if it's good, it's good. But so what? I want to know what's happening that I need to be aware of.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
And then the other thing that you got to be careful about is you got to respect the lag.
Right.
You have got to respect the lag.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I totally agree with that, and I think that, you know, that's where we run into. Well, we're gonna, and this is some of what you're talking about with holistically. Well, we're gonna fix this one thing because that's broken. Okay, and then you're so reactive, and you don't realize that you're putting band-aids on things and fixing things that then impact. So it's the I'm gonna add 3 framers, right? To make that.
And it's the every decision is a trade-off. The path is a trade-off.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's why the why needs to be so important.
Yep. So how do you make this actionable? Like, what can you do to drive this systems thinking?
I'm going to break it down into 3 simple things.
Okay.
The first one, and I'm pretty sure we have an episode on this, is that this is where the 3 zones of execution is so crucially important.
Yep.
The problem in most places is the only context, the only time frames that exist are now and later.
Yeah.
And later is never.
Right.
And the 3 zones are about the now, the 90-day period that we're in.
Yep.
The future, the transformation, a year plus, and the in between. It's like we're really just a big giant episode of Stranger Things. We
live in the upside down.
No, we live in the in between. Don't they have the in between in that?
No, I think it's the upside down.
I know it's the upside down. So what show is the in between?
I don't know.
Actually, you know you know what the in between? You know what type of thinking in between thinking is called?
What?
Liminal thinking.
Liminal thinking. Okay.
Liminal thinking.
Okay.
There's a movie apparently, 2022, The In Between. Tessa doesn't believe she deserves her own love story until she meets Skylar, a true romantic.
Oh, wow.
Car accident kills Skylar. Tessa searches for answers and thinks that Skylar is trying to connect with her from the afterworld. Okay, that's not what I'm referring to. And apparently, do not watch the movie. It only has a 4.6 rating on something. So, anyways. Build an enablement zone.
Yep.
Build your staging ground. That's going to connect to what my favorite part of it is the experiment zone. I think you should always be allocating 10 to 30% of your capacity to be running experiments. Let's play with this.
Okay.
Let's play with this.
Okay.
And then the last thing is when you talk about testing, stop talking about A/B testing. Can we just take A/B testing out of it? Can we make that a swear jar word?
I think it should be a swear jar word.
Right. What you want to do is progressive testing. Look at your quarter v quarters. This quarter, next quarter. Hey, we did this. Well, Doug, the context isn't the same. I know that. We're not doing double blind experiments. What we're looking to do is to improve throughput.
Yep.
Right. Understand what the constraint is. Right. The constraint is not the chronological sales cycle time. The constraint is the actual salesperson time.
Right.
Capacity is our biggest constraint in sales, if we're sales led. Right. So understanding those things allow you to stay focused on what really matters.
Yep.
Right. And you show me a good KPI and I will show you a KPI that stops being good over time.
Mm-hmm.
Because your constraints, your bottlenecks, your strengths and weaknesses change. So there should be a healthy adjustment of what's happening, all based on what is throughput.
Yep. And
throughput is revenue that makes money.
Revenue that makes money. I like it. Couple of key takeaways for me. Make sure that you're solving for the whole system, that you're looking at things holistically, not just one piece. In order to optimize, you have to be suboptimal. Understand your constraints and bottlenecks. And I'm actually going to add to that. And don't forget, it's all about trade-offs. What are the trade-offs you're going to make? And then lastly, the theme of the episode, it's all about throughput.
Throughput.
Clear eyes, full hearts.
Can't lose.
Oh, yeah. Just say no to shitty RevOps. Yes.
Until next time.
Bam!
And that's a wrap on this episode of the RevOps Show. I was not prepared for how strongly Jess felt about funnels and flywheels and the metaphors that go along with them. But the arguments about why they just don't work like we think they do makes so much sense to me. It brings me back to the sales performance webinar we put on a few weeks ago about how the sales process is not about a funnel or a flywheel. Rather, it's a complex system. If you weren't there for the webinar, don't worry, it'll be linked in the show notes on our site. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to go subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Give us a rating and share the episode, it would mean a lot to us. If you have any questions you would like to ask Doug and Jess about systems thinking or throughput, feel free to email me at hannah@liftenablement.com or hit us up on LinkedIn at Lift Enablement. And until next time, just say no to shitty RevOps.